A lot of people think life begins when you're born or conceived or whatever other answers they're coming up with these days. For some people, though, life actually begins the day a doctor tells them that if they don't make some serious changes in their lives, they're going to die. You see, my life began the morning of my 41st birthday in January of 2019. I stood staring in the mirror, looking back on my life after stepping on the scale and finding out I was over 400 pounds for the second time in my life. You know, my dad died when I was 17. So my choice was plain to see in front of me. Either I take charge of my health, make the necessary changes to live, or do nothing and die knowing that my daughter, being only 6 years old, would spend the majority of her life calling some other man daddy. Can't you see? There's no one coming to save me in this moment. It was me who had to become the hero in my story. You know, we live in a world that has a system in place to remove all accountability from every decision we ever make. Taking accountability and fixing the problem is painful. It's like a journey through the pit of hell while feeling the pain of every lost soul that resides there. But in the end, the journey becomes the foundation of your testimony. My fight has become my calling. So if you're out there struggling and you hear the sound of my voice, I'm telling you that your story is not over. As long as you have breath in your lungs, there is still time. But it's your fight, your story, your moment to stand up and do what heroes do. It's a long road ahead, and it sucks. And maybe you're thinking you can't do it. But I'm here to tell you that you have all the tools you need. You always have, and you always will, because you are enough. And most of all, you are worth it. Nobody is more capable than you. Yeah, Friday! Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you may be listening. Thanks for making me part of your day. This is episode 252 of the Ranting Weight Watcher podcast. And before I get started, I'm going to make a quick announcement. Listen, if you're a Weight Watchers member and you're looking for a group of people to help support your journey, then there's one place you must be every Saturday morning. And that place is Coach Sophie F's 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time workshop. That's again, Coach Sophie F, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, her workshop on Saturday mornings. If you're looking for a place where a bunch of people are in the same position as you and they're all doing the work, I'm talking about the hard work, the stuff that you have to get up and you have to actually do it. You know what? Because nothing changes unless you change. And there's a lot of society talking very, very comforting words of you can do whatever you want. It's okay. It's okay to be in the position you're in, and keeping you in mediocrity. But that's not the way it goes. If you're ever going to live out the goals that you set for yourself, it takes change. And if you're looking for the kind of support that change comes with, Coach Sophie F, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time every Saturday morning. Well, enough of that. Let's get into this! Journey updates. So the work stats this week go from September 21st, 2025 to September 27th, 2025. Total steps taken in that time period is 85,271 steps. That's an average steps per day of 12,182 steps per day. Total miles walked in that same time period is 36.3 miles. That's an average average miles per day of about 5.25 miles per day. On September 27th, I weighed in at 201.6 pounds. That is a 2.8 pound loss. Total lost since January of 2019, 194 pounds. Pounds remaining to the goal that I set 6.5 years ago, 6 pounds. Just 6 pounds remains separating me from the goal I set a little over 6.5 years ago. Let that sink in for a minute. 6 pounds away from a 200-pound weight loss goal set 6.5 years ago. How many times in all your life that you've been dealing with your health, how many times have you set a goal? And how many times have you made it 6.5 years into that goal? I'm going to be honest with you and say this is my first time. This is my first time. All the goals I ever set, all of the times I ever started, all of the things I ever did. And it doesn't even have to be just weight loss. Anything that I said whether it was a goal. Anything. This goal, being 6.5 years in the making, is the longest I've ever stuck to anything. So what's the longest you ever stuck to anything? I'm going to ask the question in a different way. What's the longest you went not caring if you stuck to anything? In other words, what's the longest you ever went putting the work into creating the problem? That's a hard question to answer. It's not really hard to answer. You know the answer. It's just hard to come up to the answer, to actually say the answer. For me, that number, at least leading up to this time, was 15 years. 15 years of hard work and dedication messing up my life brought me to that morning I talk about so often on this podcast, January 4th, 2019, my birthday. When I stepped on my scale that morning of my 41st birthday, and I saw that once again, I was over 400 pounds a second time in my life. That's a hard pill, right? That's 15 years where I didn't care. 15 years where I pretended there wasn't a problem. 15 years that I pretended I was in control. That I was right where I needed to be, and all I needed to do was tighten up the reins a little bit. 15 years wasted. Pretending. If I include my entire life in this, it's even worse. Getting to this point in this journey took breaking a lot of chains. And I say it like that because they really are chains that need to be broken. No one ever thinks about the shackles you're under. On that day one, you tell yourself, like you told yourself 1,000 times, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And you're motivated and you want to do what you always said you would do. No one ever thinks about just how much is involved in that quick little saying, that's it, enough is enough. I'm going to do what I need to do to get where I want to be. No one thinks about just how much you're saying when you say that one little sentence. No one thinks about the amount of work involved to unlearn all of the behaviors you created over however long that time was that I asked you to think of. You guys hold on to things that people say, these little sayings, and you hold on to them and you say, well, you could build a new habit in 21 days. Sure, you could build a new habit in 21 days and replace one that you've been working on for the last 15 years. That was sarcasm in case you didn't understand it. That's what we need to look at. That's what we need to see. That's the amount of work we are not actually paying attention to. It's fine and dandy for someone to say it takes 21 days to create a habit. But when you put it up against the Goliath is the behavior you created over painstaking work. 15, 20, 30, 40 years. Come on, let's say, you name it. Be real. As you hear my voice, as you hear me talking, start to think about these words. Start to think about the answers of what I'm asking here. I don't need the answers. You do. You do, because you're so ready to quit the minute something doesn't go in your way. But the one thing you didn't quit, that took dedication. Creating the problem you're sitting here listening to this podcast for took dedication, but you're not willing to look at it. But I'm going to point my finger right at it. Because so quickly we want to throw away any kind of progress. And we throw it away for the stupidest reasons. The real problem being is this little habit you created over in 21 days' time is going up against a habit you've been working on for 20 months, 20 years. It's almost a non-contest. It's almost a non-contest. It's like deciding tomorrow you're going to spend every day combing your hair the opposite direction. You've been doing one direction for years, for decades. But now today, you're going to create a new habit. There has been an urgency to my message week after week after week. And that's not going to change anytime soon. Because really, it's time to get our shit together. It's time to do the work. It's time to see just what we created, be honest with ourselves, take accountability, and start the real work involved. You hear me harp on all the time about consistency, creating consistency, doing the work that needs to be done, creating consistency, And I try to give you examples of it. Every week you hear me talk about the total work done. And that doesn't even include the food prep. It doesn't even include the weighing and measuring of food, the tracking of food. It doesn't include any of that. It's just the physical labor of the activity portion over 1 week time and averaging it out over 7 days. Because in reality, it's 5 days of work. 5 days. I'm averaging 12,000 steps a day, and 2 of those days is probably under 2,000. Because when I sit and do nothing, I literally sit and do nothing. I'm not worried about getting 10,000 steps a day because I know at the end of this week, I have utmost confidence that my average steps per day will end up over 12,000 or 10,000, whatever it is. I don't need to worry about Monday having 2,000 if Saturday has 20,000. I don't need to worry about Thursday or Friday having 1,500 if Saturday has 29,000. Do you see how that works? We spend so much time concentrating on one moment that you didn't succeed. And you beat the crap out of yourself for it. Time after time after time again. Think about how many times you failed at this point. And I want you to also think about how many times you spent out of those times you failed beating yourself up for failing, beating yourself up for quitting, beating yourself up from whatever the case may be. Throwing off the whole journey, sabotaging yourself. You give me the vocabulary. Because the vocabulary is unimportant. What's important is you come up with it. What is it? We waste time. We waste time beating ourselves up for things we've done forever. And all of that time can be invested into continuing forward. All of that energy can be invested in moving forward. But no, in reality, you'd rather beat yourself up. Because part of beating yourself up is I might as well just start again Monday. And you don't even realize it, though, because you're beating yourself up even more. Because when Monday comes, you're not just looking at the one day you failed. Let's say you failed Tuesday or Wednesday. Okay, I'll go with Wednesday. And then you say, okay, I might as well start again Monday. By the time you get to Monday, you're not just beating yourself up for Tuesday or Wednesday. You're beating yourself up for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday too. Because you purposely went on a binge after that. And that's another hard thing we need to look at. Because now, in 2025, more than ever, the foods we eat in the shelves in the grocery store are just as much drugs as that is illegal to buy on the streets. It's just as much a drug as your doctor hands you. And there's a lot of people that don't want you to realize that. And you could take or leave what I'm saying. I've already learned my lesson. If you're ever going to learn yours, it has to start in these places. What part do you play? What part do you really not pay attention to that is the reason you're still struggling how many years later? There's way too many reasons. Way too many, past traumas, all of these things involved. But somehow in the process, some of us created an unhealthy relationship with food because we were depressed, because we were angry, because we were happy, because we were sad. You come up with whatever emotion you want. The coping mechanism that became food isn't the problem. It's you not dealing with the emotions that created the problem. And so when you adopt a really, really bad way of coping with things, you come up with more really, really bad ways of coping things. And this is not just in adulthood. And it didn't even start in the traumatic moments that you have. The behavior started way before then. You would go to the doctor, you'd get a shot, you'd cry. Here, these are the vaccinations for your age, whatever it is. And then you'd leave with a lollipop. Sugar to comfort the pain. How long ago? How old is that? What age were you? Can you even remember a time going in, getting that shot, and then getting handed a lollipop? Going to the dentist, getting a teeth cleaning or a cavity filled, and then walking out with a lollipop? Mom trying to make you feel better. She gives you some cookies when you're feeling sick. Am I just talking about me here? Am I the only one? It goes back so far. We think that we have the power, the willpower, the capability to say, you know what? None of that matters anymore. Because today, I vow I'm going to lose weight. We don't even consider the amount of work that needs to be done to unlearn the behavior that created the problem. Instead, we go through an endless cycle of determination, success, compromise some more, failure, trying to gain control, losing control, failure again. And then giving up. All to come back to a moment of declaration, how it starts. That's it. I'm going to lose weight. All of that. Do you see when I say to you guys, if you can get out of your own way, do you see what I mean? This is what I mean. This is where it all begins. And it's not about just figuring it out and say, this is what I do. It's about correcting it too. Well, how do I correct it? I don't know. You come up with a plan and you attempt. I'm not here to give all the instructions. I'm not here to create the way. Everybody's got their own stuff. You create a plan of how you're going to deal with it. You're going to fail. You're going to fall on your face 1,000 times 1,000. Over and over and over again. And each time you have to get back up cover your scratches and wounds and whatever, and you have to keep going. Because there is no world where you don't fail. And if you have succeeded from beginning to end and never failed, and you're somehow hearing my voice, you haven't tried hard enough. You're capable of more. All of these things need to be documented. Like, okay, this is what I do. That's what I do. This is how I do it. This is when I do it. This is where I do it. Ownership of that needs to come with it. It's not just, oh, we're going to pretend that didn't happen. That's exactly why that you keep saying that. Oh, we're going to pretend that didn't happen. Oh, and it doesn't matter how many days apart, hours apart, weeks apart it is, months apart. As long as you could say, oh, we're going to forget that ever happened. It means the behavior is still there. And just because it's months apart does not mean it can't become hours apart all over again. The quest to become the greatest version of yourself is a quest of more than a scale result. It's a quest of becoming the person that doesn't have the issues you currently have. The person that can deal with life's stress and life's aggravation and life's depression and life's joy. A person that can deal with all of those things in a healthy manner. That's what stands in your way. All of the stuff you pretend doesn't exist, and until you take ownership of it, it won't ever go away. There's a healthy way to take ownership. There is a healthy way. And it doesn't come with punishing yourself. The punishing yourself is what causes the cycle to continue. You've heard me say it, God knows how many times. Fail, adjust, make changes, and move forward. You come to a point of failure. Okay, what happened here? Why did it happen? How did it happen? When did it happen? What can I do next time? What's my plan for next time? Okay, I'm going to do this, this, and that. And then move forward. That's it. That is it. Anything more than that, you're just continuing this cycle. As long as you continue this cycle, I'm wasting my time here. What I say does not matter as long as you continue all of the cycles that create your problem. Nothing I say matters. Jesus, he died on the cross knowing how many times you would mess up, how many times I would mess up. He knew every single person on the planet that was ever existing and ever going to exist. And he died on a cross because of every single time we would mess up in our lives. He chose that. He chose to be whipped, beaten, spit on, broken, pierced. And he chose to spend 3 days in hell before he was resurrected. For every single time all of us ever messed up and ever gonna mess up. Think about how many chances that is. Let's just take a moment. I'm just going to be silent for a moment here. And I want you to think about every time you've messed up. And I'm not talking about in regards to your health and weight loss journey. I'm talking about in your spiritual life. I want you to think about every time you've already messed up. And then I want you to think about every other person on the planet. And if you messed up that many times, they messed up at least that same amount of times already. But he didn't stop there. He died for all of the future ones that you're going to mess up for. You see, he knew how many chances you would need. Chance after chance after chance after chance. He knew how many chances I would need. God knows I'm nowhere near what I need to be. But he keeps giving me chances. How do I know he's giving me chances? Because I'm still here. I'm still breathing. I woke up this morning with another chance. Think about that. If every day is a chance, and I know I'm technically past 47. But if every day is a chance, there's 365 days in a year. At 47, on my 47th birthday, I had 17,155 chances. $17,155 chances to make my life something he could be proud of. But he knew how many chances I would need. He knew how many chances you would need. And he did it anyway. If I'm at the halfway point of my life, I'm going to need damn near 40,000 chances. Right? I'm just trying to give you a broad picture of it here. My question to you is, if Jesus died on a cross and chose to be beaten, whipped, pierced, spit on, and nailed to a tree, he chose to do all those things knowing I'd need at least 17,155 chances. You want to get aggravated and beat yourself up knowing that if you just did that math, however old you are times 365, that's how many chances you've had. knowing that he went through all of that, my question to you becomes, who are you that you can't give yourself at least the same amount of chances that Jesus gave you in order to get it right with your health? That's really what it takes. It takes the kind of patience, love, grace, mercy that God could give you. You have to give it to yourself. You have to give it to yourself in regards to this weight loss journey. Because how many times are you going to go through the same cycles, quitting over and over and over again, going to the beginning all over again? Make your declaration. Tell the world what you vowed to do. You implement it, and you start to have success. And with that, sex becomes relaxation. And that success leads you to compromise. And that compromise leads to old behavior. And that old behavior leads to failure eventually. And then the panic ensues. And then the self-mutilation ensues. And God knows how much more time has to be wasted for you to end up right back at the beginning of the declaration phase. Instead, you can just say, do the math for that day. How many times did Jesus give me a chance to get it right here? How many times? How many chances have I gotten to get my life right with him? And how many times have I quit on myself? Why can't I love myself as much as he does? Why am I saying he's wrong? Why is it, basically that's what you're saying. When you beat yourself up for this simple thing of trying to lose weight, you're saying that Jesus was wrong for how many times he would choose to give you to get it right and live a holy life. Because far worse is involved in what he sacrificed than what you're sacrificing. You cry because I can't handle just giving up stuff. I know I'll just binge and I can't live with these things. I can't live without that, and I can't live without that. And the slightest idea that this journey might be uncomfortable completely turns you off. You will openly tell the world you're willing to do anything, but you will leave out the one clause that is, as long as it's not too uncomfortable. Because that's the truth. That's the truth. You're willing to do anything that's not uncomfortable. And so we live a life of okay, mediocrity, never actually achieving what we actually set out to do. And we waste time making ourselves feel good about what we haven't done. This way, we don't have to look at the painful realization that if we keep going the way we're going, if we keep the same hang-ups we've always kept, we are never going to get there. But it's nice to think. It's nice to dream. It's nice to have that thought that could be that one sweet day. You could think that for the rest of your life. And then when you're lying on your deathbed, what if you're surrounded by all of the things you were supposed to do in your life? And they're saying to you, all you had to do was make the sacrifice and we would all be here. But we're not, because you didn't. I love each and every one of you. God bless you all.